Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm Claire Jones. I am an author, speaker, and creative flow expert committed to creating a better world through mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual well-being. So we are jumping on today for my Visionaries in Transition Facebook Live series, where I interview the amazing and inspiring impact makers in my network to discuss the transitions that have shaped our lives and businesses, because they are many over the years. And if you're joining us, please like, comment, share, comment below to let us know that you're here. And today I'm talking to Maria Elizabeth, who is a relationship coach. And we've had so many great conversations. I'm so excited for this, and I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, totally. So let's jump into it. Tell us your backstory. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, I've been involved in working with people since 1990 when I first got trained as a massage therapist. And my work life has actually gone through many transitions. So this is a perfect conversation to be having. I shifted from massage to traditional Chinese medicine after I got my master's. And then after 13 years of patient care, I burnt out on patient care in the medical model. And I got trained as a coach at that time, 2003, thinking that coaching would be the solution, because the person isn't coming to me to fix them as they are when you're a medical practitioner. They are coming for me to elicit their knowing. And I loved that shift of emphasis where I didn't have to be the doctor. And however, after about a year of doing that, I realized, you know what, I'm actually just burnt out on people. And so, and I really want to work. I want to write. The thing that called to me most loudly was writing poetry. So I spent the next 10 years going back to grad school, getting an MFA in poetry, writing, publishing, all of that. And then my marriage ended in 2012, which was a huge transition for me. And that drove me back into deeper work with myself, and in particular, the study of relationships, because that was really the one area I've always had some kind of clarity, some through line with my professional life. But relationships were always harder for me to figure out and sustain and be happy and long term and things like that. So I went into a coaching program around relationships, thinking I was like, oh, I'm not going to coach. I'm just here for me. And through the practices we had to do with each other, I remembered, first of all, I'm awesome at it. And second of all, I actually really enjoy this. And I was no longer sick of people after a 10-year break. So I began coaching folks around their relationships in 2014, 15. And I've been doing that ever since.
I love that. I mean, there's so many transitions in all of our lives. So what were the big ones? You talked about the marriage, you talked about the shift in the careers, but what were like the major ones that really like reoriented your life?
I would say shifting from the identity of being a doctor, a helper, a healer, to being a writer for 10 years exclusively, stepping out. I was also aware, I was not only burned out, but I was also aware that it was a piece of my identity that needed to die for me to grow, because there was a kind of investment, as often happens when you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of degrees, there's an investment in being the person who knows stuff.
Totally.
And for my own growth and development, I realized I had to put that one down and actually expand into areas I didn't feel as competent and I didn't feel as natively gifted. I really had to work to write well. And so that was a huge transition for me to recognize, oh, this is my next piece of development. And it makes zero sense in the outside world that I would give up this thing that I've dedicated myself to for so many years. But I was so clear that that was what was needed for my growth. And similar with the marriage, our marriage was basically good, but it was unfulfilling for me in a deeper way. And we worked hard to try to get there, but ultimately he and I just weren't able to get to the depth of connection I really wanted. And I didn't know how to invite it. Like there was missing knowledge on my part about how to actually invite the depth I wanted instead of making him wrong, as one does. And he also, that just wasn't where wasn't where he came from. You know, that the depth I wanted wasn't necessarily where we met. naturally. I mean, he's married to a wonderful woman now and has 2 kids. I've been with my partner for 7 years. We're going to get married next year. And so, it was the right choice. And it was one of those transitions that felt terrible for the first few years. I felt guilty. I flailed. I felt like a failure. I felt like a traitor to my vows. I mean, all the things one feels after divorce. However, it gave me my new direction. If I hadn't gotten divorced, I never would have been motivated to study what makes us tick in relationships and why are they so hard and what are things we can do to make them easier and flow better and feel better and go deeper. Who do we have to be to invite the love we want? And I never would have considered that or gone in that direction. I probably would still just be writing, which I still do. I love writing, but I probably would not have reawakened my love of helping people had I not gone through my own pain and my own guttedness, and which opened me to be willing to learn something new about how to relate.
I love that you're bringing up this concept of connection here, like both the connection with a partner or another person, whoever that is for you, but also the connection with yourself.
That's
because you're talking about, right? I mean, that's where we all start, right? But a lot of people don't. Like, that is a level of connection that we don't often value in our society, of like really understanding who we are and really plumbing those depths. Like you're talking about, you have to, I mean, your writing journey did this for yourself, but you have to come to face with those shadow aspects of yourself and those depths of yourself in order to really understand what is the most fulfilling way to present yourself to the world for you.
Absolutely. And to make sure that you're not just living what I tend to call a default life, where you're defaulting to what you were taught to want, what the world says you should want, what your family thinks you should want, if you're religious, what your religion tells you to want, but you're actually doing the deeper work to discover, what do I want from my soul? Like what are my true desires versus what I've been taught. And until you do that work, you're basically living a default. And I've just never been okay with that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it makes me think about my own writing journey, because especially when you're talking about creative output and writing, or whether you're an artist or whatever, there's that stereotype of the starving artist, the starving writer, and so the external world is very much going to tell you, like, don't follow that path.
or make sure you become a teacher or you have some other job,
Totally. And I've faced that. Like, I've been writing since elementary school, but every step along the way, people were like, no, you should pay attention to these things over here. You don't want to be writing about that. And especially when it comes to like these deep relationship conversations that we have, is like, how do we as a society not only talk about creative expression, but creative expression in a way that reflects our deeper selves, whether that is sexuality, whether that is, imagination, or whatever you want to create with the words or the product that you're producing, you're creating. It's a reflection of that deeper awareness.
Absolutely. To me, as a creative, I've always been a creative like you. And as a creative, that connection to that deeper self is key. Otherwise, you're going to just, again, be regurgitating other people's stuff. And it's really hard to be original if you don't know yourself.
Right. Yeah. Like, people always say that, like, art is only referential nowadays because all art has already been made, like there's those arguments that go around the art world, is like, well, everything is just a reference to something else now. And yes, that's true. Like, especially when we look at K-pop, like K-pop is so referential, like that's the culture of it, is referencing other things. But what helps us participate in this world of art and continually create art is, like you said, that original perspective of ourselves, because only we have that viewpoint of the world. Only we experienced what we've experienced, and only we can present that perspective.
Exactly. To me, it's a both and. I mean, we're influenced by the world. We're influenced by what we read, what we see, who we talk to, all of that. And the way all that stuff gets distilled
Mm-hmm.
is unique to us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the particular filters we look through are unique to us. Many of them are culturally driven. You know, they were implanted by our family and by the culture, but they all come together in a unique way that is ours. And so the more you can get to know what that is, and this really applies to relationships as well, because the way we react to another human being who's either doing something we don't want, or, you know, we wish they would do something else, or whatever it is that's happening as we relate to people, whether it's personal, family, intimate, lover, friend, you know, people are going to be people, and the way we interpret what they say and do, again, are through these filters. And if you're not aware of your filters, you automatically think that what you believe is true. Totally. And it might not be true. Like, you might be completely not accurate about what's happening in the situation, but you don't know that. A, because you haven't examined your filters or taken responsibility for trauma and history that has you react in certain ways. Totally. And B, very often you're not actually asking the other person, hey, what do you mean by that? That landed kind of funny. What's happening there? Like, most of us don't do that. We just assume, oh, that was a diss. And it's like, maybe it wasn't a diss. Maybe that was a person just being themselves, and you have a diss button that is very active. Totally. And, you know, you need to work with your diss button and not try to change them, because they're fine.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's why I find writing so fascinating, because words, it's semantics at the end of the day.
Right. And relationships, there's so much semantics involved in relationships too. Yeah.
Like, just by using the word like money, even in talking about relationships, like, what do you mean by money? Do you mean, like, there's so many different semantics around all of these very common words that we say and speak and write all the time. And I just find it fascinating.
Yeah. And it's like, and what do we really mean by these words? Love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what most people mean by love is, as long as you do what I want you to do, I'll be nice to you. Like, totally. It's control. Like, what most of us actually mean by love is control. Yeah. And so, you know, it's a lot to unpack to actually have a deeper, loving relationship that's not based on control.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it goes back to that connection with ourselves.
Absolutely.
And both partners need that too. Like, both partners need to be connected to themselves in order to connect to each other in an understandable way.
Amen. Exactly.
Like, well,
and that can be
Russian.
Grown. Right. Right. And I speak Swedish. French. Yeah. Or French or whatever. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. I do want to say that this thing they were talking about is not, I hear a lot like, oh, I need to work on myself before I get into a relationship.
Totally.
And I want to counter that and say, sure, there's definitely healing that we have to do on our own, et cetera, et cetera. However, depending on how you approach your relationship, if it's a vehicle for your growth and it's revealing to you what you need to see, and it's a practice ground to do things in new ways, it's not about trying to perfect yourself alone so then you can be a good person in the relationship, because alone you're not going to get triggered in the same way. You're not going to have your shit shoved in your face in the same way. And so my suggestion or my invitation is, do the healing you absolutely need to do, you know, like the trauma related things, but don't feel like you have to perfect yourself. First of all, perfecting ourselves is a myth, but second of all, the relationship exists to help you grow. So there's don't think you're going to get all your growth and then you're going to magnetize the perfect person. No, like anybody can be the perfect person to practice with. Yeah. And some of the people you practice with end up sticking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it boils down to this concept of growth as an endpoint too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, growing never ends.
It doesn't. There's no arrival.
Yeah, like, I can't be like, I am fully grown.
I'm grown. Yeah. I am grown, because then entropy sets in and we start to stagnate, right?
Yeah. So what are the lessons that you learned along the way through all of these transitions? Like, what were the big ones?
Well, the big one was really to listen to myself. Like the big, if I had held on For example, when I decided to close and sell my acupuncture office, I was in the process of expanding into a new place, and I had put a deposit down to buy a larger office, and I was going to start teaching classes and having other practitioners and the whole nine. And I had this revelation that's not what I wanted to do. In fact, I wanted to not be in patient care anymore. And if I hadn't had permission for myself to hear that, I would have been locked in, to this thing I didn't really want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And similarly with my marriage. Now, with my marriage, it didn't come, it also came somewhat as a bolt of lightning revelation. However, my health had declined over the space of a few years. So my body was trying to tell me something. I was getting more and more tired. My adrenals were tanking.
Yeah.
I was not listening to. I was just trying to fix that instead of tune into what was really going on. And the revelation was, it's not that I'm broken and incapable of happiness in a long-term committed relationship, is that I'm unhappy in this one. And either we need to shift how we relate in some profound ways, or we need to split up. Our relationship had run its course. Mm-hmm. Again, it wasn't bad. It was just okay. And it was okay is not okay for me. And so those were some of the key, that was a key lesson. So listening to myself, including listening to symptomology of my body, because our bodies are talking to us all the time.
Totally.
The second lesson I would say is you don't have to know what the next thing is necessarily. You just have to be willing to wait and hear. I'm clairaudience, so for me, it comes a lot through hearing, but you feel your next step, see your next step, hear your next step, however information lands for you. I'm about to cough. To get to know how best you hear your intuition and your deeper knowing, and listen to it, as I've already said, and be willing to not know the next step.
Yeah.
And be open.
Yeah. Being open, I think, is such an understated practice. I want to intentionally use the word practice here, because it is a practice. Like you can't
it is.
Be like, I'm open. Like the whole grown thing, like open is not an endpoint.
No. And there's opening and opening and opening and opening.
Yeah.
And sometimes you contract. It's a natural, I'm thinking of like a morning glory that opens with the sun, and then it closes at night. Like opening and contraction are natural movements. Yeah. So it's unnatural to think we can be open all the time. It's just not how nature works. It's not how we work. Totally. We have to sometimes close. And it's, how do you not grip to the opening so closing feels like a failure? And how do you not grip to the closing so you keep yourself miserable longer than necessary and miss the opening that's waiting to emerge?
Yeah. Yeah. Really what we're talking about here is self-trust too.
Yes.
Not only self-knowledge, but like trusting that self-knowledge at the end of the day, because that's the only way you can hold that open space, is by trusting yourself to hold space. And similar with the closed space is like trusting that the closed space is completely fine.
It is.
You are not broken because you are closed.
Exactly. And the less you grip to it, the quicker it passes too.
Yeah. Like I was talking about this in a meeting before this, is like when on one of my sabbaticals, I had to spend 3 days in bed. Like didn't shower, just read 3 books in 3 days in my bed.
Yes.
And I had to just be okay that I was in this very cocooned, closed hermit space. And I just needed that.
Exactly.
We have to trust.
We have to trust. After my mother died 2 years ago, I found myself in this dark cave internally and couldn't do anything for months. I couldn't access my desire to build my business. I fulfilled my existing clients, but I basically stopped everything and let myself grieve and be there until I naturally came out. And for me, it was about 3 months. And then there was this glimmer of desire, and I wanted to come out again. Mm-hmm. But I was so clear that I had to wait for the glimmer and not force it and not push. our culture is very grief averse and very push heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to go against all of that and just really allow myself to just do the minimum, fulfill my clients. And I wrote and I cried and I read and I took walks and, and it's exactly what was needed. Yeah. And then when I came out for real and had energy behind it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that brings up my next question is like, what practices or tools did you use to support yourself during these times?
Journaling has always been a thing for me. So that's definitely a practice I turn to. I don't journal every day anymore. I used to be compulsive and have to journal every day. I don't do that anymore. But especially when I'm in transitional times or liminal times, I love that word, one of my favorite words. Mm-hmm. When I'm in liminal spaces, I love to journal. It just helps me connect to my deeper knowing and hash out my thoughts. Meditation, I've been a meditator for 30 years. So again, my practice waxes and wanes according to how I'm feeling and what I'm doing, but that's always a practice I turn to, is just to sit my ass down and be with myself, breathe. Movement is key. And the type of movement varies depending. If I'm exhausted, I'm not going to push myself to do an intense bike ride. I'm going to do some qigong or some gentle stretching or something like that. I've learned that the hard way because I always used to push my body no matter what. And I ended up with 2 hip replacements. So
I
word to the wise.
I am not a hip person.
Word to the wise. Don't push too hard the body. And then I'm thinking, what else? I mean, I have my sort of stable of healers. I turn to help at any given time. I have an energy healer who I work with on a regular basis, ongoing, whether I'm in a transition or not. But I also will sometimes get acupuncture. I get massage. I as someone who has been a healing practitioner, I know the value and the necessity of help sometimes not cleaning, but like clearing out the energy that tends to build up. Because a lot of times when we start getting whacked out in our heads is because there's just simply too much energy trapped in the body, and it tends to express itself as overthinking and worry and obsessiveness. And so if my head starts to go that way, I do something to move the energy. I move my body. I get a session with somebody that moves energy, stuff like that. Sex is another thing that's really helpful. If I have a libido in a transitional period, I find it super grounding and connecting to myself to have some kind of sexual activity. Mm-hmm. And I like dancing. In particular, I mean, I've always been a dancer, but in particular, just putting on a song and dancing to it, 3 minutes, a song that feels good. Again, it just gets me in my body. It gets me loosened up. It gets me the energy moving, and I can more clearly hear myself as a result. Yeah. And I also tend to, in those times, I tend to not get too restrictive. Like if I want to eat junk food, okay. Because I recognize, I'm in a transitional space. If that's the craving, I allow it. Mm-hmm. And if it starts to feel excessive, then I'll put some rails. But I like to just have a lot of permission as a practice.
Yes.
In times like that.
I love that. Permission as a practice. I'm going to add that to my vernacular, because that is just the perfect way to describe that, is giving yourself permission to follow those energies where they lead. Like, I totally did that on my sabbatical. I got myself a big thing of Oreos. And I was like, I just need Oreos and peanut butter right now.
Right. I need Oreos, peanut butter, bed, and books. And see you when I come out.
Exactly.
That's
but
good.
We guilt and shame ourselves so much for those kinds of practices that are unhealthy or unproductive, especially in our society. And especially when it comes to creativity, is like being creative for the sake of being creative versus being creative for the sake of being productive.
Right. That is, and it's so tricky because the work that gets produced in each is very different.
Totally.
And the work that gets, I'm a fan of the work that gets produced to be creative. However, sometimes you actually do have to produce, but I find that the more I can make room for the creative without worrying about the production in the moment of creation.
Yeah.
To me, the other thing I do a lot all the time, but especially in liminal type of spaces, is I do a lot of parts work with my clients and parts work and with myself. Parts work is where you really listen and have a conversation with some part of yourself that's having a feeling in the moment. And so in particular around creative work, I mean, I remember in grad school, I really was struggling with my inner critic. And it got so bad that I just couldn't produce. I couldn't write. I mean, in my second semester of my MFA, I was having serious trouble showing up to class with a poem because I just was having trouble writing anything I thought was worthy to bring to class. And so I really had to start working deeply with my inner critic. And what I discovered, your critic loves you. It wants the best for you. It wants you to be better. And I invited my critic to be an editor, to be my discernment, to actually have a shift in the job description and to leave me the fuck alone. Leave me alone while I'm creating the first draft. Let me get the draft out and then I'm going to invite you in and you can have at it because I need a dispassionate editor and the critic is great for that. And so with that shift in relationship, it really freed me up to create more. And so I think that's true for a lot of transitions is you got to work with whatever the voices are, like the shame that comes up when it's oh my God, I just ate a tub of Oreos. You work with that. Oh, what is it you want from me? How can we work well together? Can you see, this is what I need to do right now. I hear you. And I'm not going to do this every day for the rest of my life. Sit the fuck back. Right. Yeah. And so in that way, that's how you build permission, by including those shadowier voices that seem to be not on your side, but truly are when you get to know them. That's how you allow more of your unconscious or your shadow material into present time, into awareness. And then you can move forward through the liminal into your next forward movement, into your next piece of growth, with more of you present, more of you intact, instead of the opposite that most people do, which is suppress what they don't want to see, suppress what they don't want to hear, try to be a good person. And then they move forward this fractured, being that doesn't have your full power, because half your power you shoved out back in the background and tried to lock the door on.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, sometimes we just need to sit down and eat a pan of brownies.
Amen.
And that is okay.
It's okay. Sometimes you're going to blow up at people and that's okay. Do the work to figure out, hey, what was it that made me blow up? Is there another way I could have responded? Could I have said something different? Is there a request I could have made that I didn't make? You can deconstruct the blow up afterwards, but you don't have to shame yourself for blowing up.
Yeah. Why do I need this pan of brownies in this moment?
Exactly.
Do I just need the dopamine hit? Do I just need to have my hands doing something while I'm watching TV? That's what I run into when snacking late at night. My hands just need something to do while I'm watching TV.
That's great to know, because you could take up knitting or something.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I just need fidget spinners or something,
Exactly.
Something that's not shoving chips into my mouth.
Right. And it's good to discover the actual desire. The need is to move my hands. Well, how else could I fulfill that? In a way that's not going to have me feel like shit tomorrow.
Right. Well, per usual, this is powerful stuff that we're talking about. And audience, we definitely encourage you to share your own thoughts and feelings and stories and insights with us as well. We'd love to know how transitions have impacted you in your own lives. So anything you want to add before we wrap up for today?
That's it. I mean, if anyone is interested in connecting with me further, I have an amazing assessment. Takes about 4 or 5 minutes. And I have one for partnered people and one for single people. And it shows you, it gives you a real snapshot of this is what's working well in my relationships and how I'm showing up. And this is where I need to put some attention.
Yeah.
And so I invite you to take my assessment and reach out to me, connect with me. And you can find that. You can find both the single and partnered one on my homepage, which is relationshipalchemy.com.
Great, great. And you can find all of my links at linktr.ee/clairjoyance. I'm actually changing my link tree for now.
Oh.
But yes, I'm going to be adding the links in the comments on Facebook and in the description on YouTube, so they're easily accessible for everyone. And special thanks to Maria Elizabeth for joining me today. It's been an absolute
Thank you for this
pleasure.
awesome conversation. It's you don't get to have this kind of depth with everybody. And I just love it. Every time we get to talk, we just go right in, I mean, love that.
That's why I started the series, because I had all of these awesome conversations in one-to-one meetings. And I was like, why is this not public?
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you're doing this series because it's needed.
Totally, totally. So that brings me to my next point, is I'm always looking for guests. So if you're interested in coming on the series, reach out to me. I'll share the link with you. We're booking into February at this point, if you can believe it. 2023 is right around the corner.
It really is. Oh, and fans of Claire, Claire's been on my podcast. And so maybe you could put the link to your podcast episode so people can hear the brilliance that you dropped on my show, because that was such a great episode. And it came out pretty recently, a few weeks ago. So
yeah, it was recently. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So check out her episode because it was great.
Thank you. Thank you. So until next time, please remember that your authentic self is extraordinary. It is wonderful, and you owe it to yourself to create the elevated life that you know you are capable of. Take care, everyone.